Intern Stories. Come on in here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our LPI Intern Stories. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a phenomenal session tonight talking with current and past LPI interns. So please get your questions ready. They are ready to answer your questions. I'm excited to hear your questions and the answers they're going to follow. I am Sherelle Webb, the Public Engagement Lead at the Lunar and Planetary Institute, a phenomenal place to work, by the way.
Hey, Sherelle.
And I have, yes.
I see Elizabeth and Megan are in our attendees list, so we need to bring them onto the panel.
Yes, indeed. Hello, Elizabeth. We're going to elevate you as well as Claudia. Hello, Megan. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Awesome. I love your background. That's awesome. Elizabeth, yours as well.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us. Welcome to our first LPI Intern Stories, the first of three, a series of three. We're so happy that you're joining us tonight. We have a phenomenal panel of current and past LPI interns, and they're going to be talking about their current experiences thus far, as well as the process, how did I get here, and about the ups and downs of their experiences. We want to hear it all. So you have questions along those lines, we are ready and willing to hear them. Please drop them in the Q&A. We also are going to be hearing some questions from YouTube. We are streamed on YouTube right now. So if you want to see the recording of this, please go to the LPI or the Lunar and Planetary Institute YouTube page, and you're going to see everything that we're discussing now.
Waiting on the YouTube live to start. Has not started.
Awesome. Okay, well, then you're present, so you'll get to hear this part. So hopefully you want to hear a replay of this. But everything else will be here. Again, everyone, thank you, and welcome to our LPI Intern Stories, the first of series of three. My name is Sherelle Webb, and joining me is my phenomenal new partner in crime, Grace. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grace. I'm pretty new to the LPI, and I'm really excited for this series of events that we're conducting over the summer. We hope we'll see you back at our second and third LPI Intern Stories panels. We'll be focusing on some of the same topics that we talk about today, but we'll be talking about other topics in the later series. So it's for repeat visitors. So please come back for these later events. We'll be putting information into the chat. And then again, we just encourage you to put any questions you might have into our Q&A, and our interns, myself, Sherelle, and our awesome administrators can help answer those questions.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and get this party started. So before we go into introducing everyone, let's ask, I'm curious. I want to know, I want to ask you a few questions. So Christine, would you please launch one of the poll questions, poll number 3, would you please go ahead and launch it? And the question reads, would you rather go to Mars, Venus, Europa, Pluto? And if your answer is other, please drop in the chat box, what other place would you go to? Would you rather? Where would you rather go? And I'm gonna actually launch this over to Simon. I know you haven't got to know him yet, but Simon, could you please tell us, like, where would you rather go? You have an idea?
Yeah, so I would go to Europa, which is right behind me. Because it's like one of the coolest moons in the solar system. It's one of the only places where there's liquid water, and it's a subsurface ocean actually, or supposed subsurface ocean. And I think it's just it's a cool place to visualize going in the far future, just because it's such a cool dynamic world.
Interesting answer. Do I have any other panelists that want to give where would they like to go, or what would you rather before we move on to introductions? Okay, no worries at all. All right, so again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. So everyone, oh, Mars is a popular place. All right, so that's quite interesting. You know, well, you may not know, but at the Lunar and Planetary Institute, we have some phenomenal scientists that study Mars, and some of our interns are working with them. And so I look forward to you asking questions about Mars in the future to our scientists. They are will be eager to hear your questions, and maybe someday you'll be an intern and you can ask them your questions yourself, and also participate in some current research outlining the incredible planet Mars. So thank you guys for participating. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to start with introductions. So I have here to my right on my screen will be Simon. You were already speaking, so go ahead, Simon. Tell us your name, what college, university are you representing, and what are you currently working on as an LPI intern?
So I'm Simon Mendenhall. I'm in Florida right now. I attend the University of South Florida. My major is physics, and I'm minoring in astronomy right now. And my current project for the LPI is modeling the Martian water cycle. And so there's a lot of things that we don't know still about the water cycle on Mars. The atmosphere is about 1% the atmospheric density of Earth. And so there's not a lot of water in the atmosphere. And so we're modeling basically how the water vapor goes from the surface to the upper atmosphere.
Whoa, oh, okay. Well, you already sound cool, so we're gonna move on. Megan, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Megan Brossard. I go to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and I'm a chemistry major. And this summer with LPI, I'm looking at meteorites and radar, so weather radar. We already are scanning the skies constantly, so these things can actually pick up rocks falling, and that will help us collect more samples that we can study.
Awesome. Well, I would say that you rock, but that may sound a little, okay, anyway. Elizabeth, go ahead and tell us. Welcome.
Hi guys, my name's Elizabeth, and I go to Case Western Reserve University, which is in Ohio, but I'm from Indiana. I'm a geology major with a minor in nutrition, and my project at the LPI this summer is looking at some eclogitic type mineral assemblages, which are high pressure, high temperature minerals that we would normally only see in like subduction zone conditions on Earth. But they're in these pretty primitive meteorites called chondrites. So yeah, looking at those to get a better idea of what bodies were like in the early solar system.
Awesome, and thank you for saying yes to being part of our panelists. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I'm gonna swing it over to Gabriel. Gabriel is unique because he's not a current LPI intern, but he has come back. He's already experienced the process. And so thank you, Gabriel, for just joining us tonight. Go ahead and tell everyone your name, the college, university that you represent, and what did you study as an LPI intern?
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Shara, for having me today. So I don't know which university I represent because I technically just graduated. I come from the University of Puerto Rico, but I'm gonna go into my PhD at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, in part thanks to my experience at LPI. And so I actually was an intern in 2019, the last in-person summer. And I worked with Dr. Edgar Rivera Valentin on developing a radar for the lab for them to test and characterize meteorite samples.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us again. We have a special person that's on our panelists, and her name is Claudia Bellard. Claudia, would you please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone why you are here specifically?
Thank you, Sherelle. I'd like to welcome everyone to this new series for the LPI interns. And as Sherelle introduced me, I'm Claudia Bellard. I am the Senior Program Coordinator for the LPI Intern Program. And I am excited to welcome every single one of y'all to join us. Primarily, one of the things I like to share information is how to submit a successful application and how to catch the mentors or the reviewers' eye, so you can have one of those unique opportunities as this panel has. They've had, the interns are a wonderful group. This program is very prestigious, and we look forward to receiving applications. Thank you, Sherelle. Back to you.
Yeah, awesome. So for those of you are asking questions about the application process and those requirements, if you put those questions in the chat box, Ms. Claudia is going to be answering those questions directly. So that was the purpose of her being here, because if you have specific questions about the process, we want to make sure that they are answered. So that's going to be your go-to person. So if you can drop those questions in the chat box, Ms. Claudia will be ecstatic to help you. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out who do we have in the audience. So Christine, would you please launch poll number 2? Let's see, who do we have here? And then let's get into our Q&A. So tell us about yourself. Who are you? Who's in our audience today? All right. We're gonna count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see, do you have some of those results? Okay, high school students, awesome. Yes, I'm really, really excited about that, because guess what? Not throwing shade on anyone else that is attending, but guess what? I specifically wanted the high school students to hear this. Why? Because all of our panelists, everyone that's on stage, right? We've all been through it, but I'm so happy to know that you're here, because you can hear firsthand on the process and how they got to this point. So I am so happy that you're here. So happy. And I want to invite you to the second and third one, because this one's going to be awesome. All right. So again, thank you. Let's go ahead and jump into our questions. Grace, would you please go ahead and do the honors of asking our first series of questions?
Absolutely. So first off, I'd like to ask Elizabeth, how did you find out about the internship at LPI?
Yeah, so I actually heard about the internship at the LPI through a professor at my school. So I was doing some research in the geology department already, and they suggested that I look at a few different summer programs, and this was one that they recommended to me. Yeah, so I actually applied my freshman year and did not get accepted, and I reapplied as a junior. So just putting that out there, there's no shame in applying many times.
Yeah, that's a really great piece of information to know. Yeah, you can apply to this multiple times, and other internships as well. The rest of our interns, did you find this internship in a similar way, through a different source maybe?
For me, it was actually part of a research project. So I was doing a research project back at my campus with a professor who was kind of working with Ed. And part of the research project ended up being the internship. So what I was working on the lab, I actually started working on it a couple of months before. So it was really nice to sort of be working on that full time. And that's something that I haven't been able to do on another internship, sort of, start the project from a really early stage.
Awesome advice. So speaking of advice, Megan, would you give the audience any tips in particular when applying for internships?
Yeah, I actually have a few points. One would be letters of recommendation. So I think that's something that can be really tricky for people. So like if you're in high school, you talk to one of your teachers. But you should never just assume that they know everything about you. So I would advise giving them a resume or a list of like, what are your extracurricular activities? What are your career goals so that they can write you a good letter. And anytime you ask for a letter, you should explicitly say, could you write me a good letter? Because if they say no, you probably should pick somebody else. When it comes to writing your essays, I think you should really express why are you interested in the program? And you can use keywords from the program. Like every program has details on their website, and you can include those when you're writing your essays and really express why are you interested? What do you want to get out of the program? And then I'd say my last tip is you should apply to more than one program because it increases your chances. I've applied to many and not gotten accepted. And yeah.
I think that I would appreciate those tips. Does anyone have additional tips that they want to share? I definitely believe that the tip of applying to more than one is, I mean, it's crucial because it's like you're playing the law of large numbers, right? If you only apply to 1 or 2 and don't get accepted, you're devastated, and then what you're gonna do? So, and you know what? I now thought about like giving yourself enough time to complete the application, right? Those deadlines are crucial. So you want to make sure that you have enough time to actually plan out so the person that you are asking for the letter of recommendation, they're not rushed, right? Because of the lack of planning. Next question, Ms. Grace.
Well, I actually just kind of wanted to follow up with any of our interns that want to answer this, but could someone briefly describe the parts of the application package, what it was you actually had to do?
I remember that there was one part where it was like an essay question. And so there was different essay questions that you had to answer, such as things like if you had any prior research or any experience. And one thing that really stuck out to me that is essential, or it helps your application a lot, is if you have any leadership experience, because a lot of these programs look for leadership experience, and that you can either lead a project or take an initiative. And so I think that getting those kinds of experiences, especially in college, is something really crucial. And I didn't really do that until my last 2 years, which is why I kind of I wasn't into that, like all those internship opportunities didn't really arise for me until I started taking those advantages. And so I think that's one really important thing is the leadership aspect.
Yeah, and do you think that includes things that are outside of, strict academia? Yeah?
Yeah, definitely, because it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you can take things that apply. So even working a job that has nothing to do with science or STEM or academia, you can still apply those skills that you learned to academia, because it all intersects. And so you can definitely take those skills and apply them somewhere else.
Okay, well, so that leads me into my next question. And this one is directed to Simon or Elizabeth, both of you I'd like to hear from, but if Megan and Gabe have thoughts on this as well, please jump in, because I think this is a big one. Had you ever done research before? And if so, what has your research experience been like? And then I'd like to hear you describe how you feel that research is maybe similar or different from academic work.
I guess I can go first. So I had done research before at my school. I guess this is kind of something we'll probably talk about later, but I wasn't totally sure what I wanted to study when I got to college. So I was interested in geology, and I thought getting involved in some research might be a cool way to get an idea if it was really for me or not. So I started a research project looking at some topographic anomalies on the planet Mercury, and I really liked it and kind of thought to myself, maybe geology is for me. In terms of how research is similar or different from academic work, do you mean like academic work for classes at school?
Yeah, I'm thinking, it's easy to understand like what a class might be like, even if it's in a subject you've never done. But is research like classwork or is it something else?
I guess research, if it were a class in my book, it would be a lot more fun than a lot of the more typical classes. Because in classes, at least traditionally, there's more of a clear cut, this is the problem, this is how you solve it, this is right, move on. Whereas research, I think there's a lot more opportunities for creativity and kind of exploring as you go, which is really fun, I would say.
Yeah, and so I started my research with my one of my former professors in physics, and I kind of actually took a different route than what I was interested in, just because I was the same way. I didn't really know what to do. I switched my majors 3 times because I was like, oh, I started in biology, and then I realized, oh, I don't really like this as much, and then I switched to chemistry, and I was like, well, I don't really like that much either, and I switched to physics, and I finally understood that that was what I wanted to do. And then, so my research was with 2D nanomaterials. And so we took nanomaterial alloys and shone lasers on them to see what the emission was like. And even though it wasn't something that I really was like gung-ho about, it taught me a lot about the professionalism in research. And I learned how to code from that research. I learned how to use MATLAB from that research, and I wouldn't have done that if I had just taken classes. And so I think in that way, it also differs because you yourself kind of have to push yourself more when you're doing research because you learn more when you do it yourself. And I think that in classes, you kind of, unless you're really interested in it, it kind of goes over your head sometimes because you just do the assignments and you're trying to get it done. And so you don't really learn as well as when you're doing research. So I think that's a major difference between the two.
And for Megan and Gabe, did you guys do previous, research projects prior to your LPI internship? Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of didn't know what I was going to do either. I changed my major as well. And so I kind of used research as a way to figure out what I was interested in, because again, you can't really get that idea from class. So like I was an electrical engineering major and I did research in photolithography, which is basically making circuits with light. That was fun, but I realized I wasn't interested in the electrical stuff as much as the chemistry, so I ended up changing to chemistry. And I've done research in that like with gas chromatography and measuring VOCs, volatile organics, and breath. But I was like, I really like space, and I found a professor at my university who actually studied cosmochemistry, and that's what introduced me to planetary science. And so I'm now doing research separating, it's called pre-solar grain stardust from meteorites. And so that's really cool. And what I say is different about research from schoolwork is schoolwork, if a teacher gives you a question, there probably is a right answer, but with science, you could be completely wrong. There could be something wrong with your question. It's like way more open and lots more chances for mistakes. But what's cool is you can collaborate and you can work with other people. And in the end, I find it way more rewarding than schoolwork.
Yeah, I'd agree with everyone that it's much more rewarding. I had done research on antenna engineering, which is what I was studying, but it was mostly focused on like 5G antennas and communication systems. And then I got the research through which I got the internship, which was a more way more encompassing project. I not only worked on the antenna, but also on the radar hardware itself. But yeah, definitely in class, you can get everything from the textbook. It's usually what the professor does, but on the research, it's really hard to get all the information you need. And your professor or your advisor will never have all the information. That's why they're doing the research. So in a sense, you're sort of making new science. And I mean, the interesting stuff is, if you're into science and research, you probably are comfortable in working with stuff you don't really know much about, but people think you do. so you're sort of lost all the time trying to find your way through. And there's really crazy stuff. Like sometimes the simulator tells you you're right, like this is your answer. You created energy out of nowhere. And you know that's physically impossible. So you start digging in and you take different routes. Like, yeah, it's supposed to go in this direction, but you end up like your paper ends up being completely different from what you started at. So I think that's really important. You know, in class, you have a syllabus, you're gonna follow through the whole semester, but in research, you really never know where it's gonna take you.
Yeah, you're charting your own path. It's very cool, and you're right, can be very frustrating. So each of you has done research before this. Just really quickly, I mean, how does an undergrad find a research project? What did you do to start researching as a college student?
In college, especially, you're in these massive classes, especially like when you're a freshman, and you might not get to know your professor very well. And I think it's a good idea for everyone to go and visit their professors in their office hours, even if you don't necessarily have a question about the class. Just again, you could get recommendation letters from them if you get to know them, but also ask them about their research and like go visit other people you haven't taken classes from and ask them about their research. I promise you they want to talk about it. It's what they're really passionate about. And then you can just ask, can I work in the lab? And they're very happy for help lots of the time.
And are these ever paid research positions? Are you guys supported through these? It can be. I know sometimes it's not.
When I have done research during the semester at Case, have gotten like credit for it, which has been nice. And then I worked as a research assistant over the summer, which was paid, but it's not always that way. But it's a good idea when you're looking for research advisors, if that is something you need, to be upfront about it and start that conversation early, because I think it really sets a better expectation from both parties.
I think that with like Megan's advice, introducing yourself, because if the first time that you go visit someone or a professor and he's like, oh, do you have a paid opportunity for me? It's like, that's, you know, not as nice, but building that relationship prior to that, and then as something come around, then they will have you in mind. So I think that definitely building that relationship prior to, you know, not saying that in the long run, that's what you are ultimately trying to do, but just making yourself, I guess, visible and open with the scientists to know, or with the professors to let them know that, yes, I'm a student of many, but I am looking for a research opportunity, right? Putting that out there, because they wouldn't know unless she said something, right?
Yeah, I would add that maybe you feel a bit uncomfortable talking to like this person with a PhD who's a world expert on the topic, and it's completely understandable. And I think another point of contact could be TAs or like administrators, you know, even the person when you walk into the department's office, he or she's sitting right there. They kind of know the professors, they know who's good to work with, who's bad to work with, and they can be really good at giving advice, especially TAs. They're probably grad students, so they do research with these professors, and they can get you started on that. They can sort of, you can ask them like, what do you do in your research? They're gonna tell you, I do this and this and this. And just by that, you can decide, maybe I'm not interested in this, so I'm gonna go ahead and go speak to someone else. Or you decide, that sounds really interesting. So then you write an email to the professor or ask the TA, could I speak with him? Or could you put me in contact with like this person? And they usually do. I mean, they're students just like us. So yeah, we help each other.
All right. Well, I'll move on to our next question for you guys. And reminder to our audience, please put questions into the Q&A. We want to take your questions, but Sherelle and I have questions prepared just so that there's no dead time. But please put any questions you have into the Q&A. That's why we're here. We want to hear from you guys. So in the meantime, I will ask, what is your favorite part? What do you like most about the LPI internship so far? So we can start with Simon, and then we'll move to Elizabeth. But then after that, I'd also like to hear from Gabe what your favorite part of the internship was after you've completed the whole thing, because our interns are only a couple weeks in. So yeah, Simon, what do you like so far?
Yeah, so one thing that I really enjoy about it is that it prepares us for real world, like professional research, which is something that undergraduate like classes don't really do. And I like how it lets you work on a real like problem in science, and you get the access of talking with the lead researchers and collaborating with them, and they treat you like an actual scientist, which is like really cool. Because everything before that, I would just felt like a little fish in a giant ocean of all these crazy ideas that I would never be able to be a part of. But now I feel like I'm really included. And I just love how it lets you grow, not only as like a scientist, but as a person as a whole. Because the more you learn about what you like and don't like, the more you learn about yourself, and then you can apply those to future opportunities. And so I think that's one of the most amazing things that I've experienced so far.
I guess my favorite part of the internship so far, and Simon kind of hit it when he said that word included, I have really felt like I am part of this community at the LPI. Even though I'm in Indiana, which is pretty far from Houston, I felt like, I guess between meeting regularly with my advisor and kind of having that rapport and learning all these different things, and I've really liked being able to go to kind of the different, like once a week we get a talk on some totally different topic in planetary science, which isn't related to our project, which I love getting that exposure because I'm really excited about my project. I'm really excited about the research I've done before, but I feel like there's always something out there that surprises me and I'm like, oh my gosh, could I do that? So yeah, I just, like I said, I think the big word for me is included, just in the community.
So having been through the process, I'd say my favorite part was working with the people that work there, not just on the professional level and on the research we did, but also interacting out of the office, especially other interns. We basically hung out every single day after work. We did something. We went to Dave and Buster's. We just hung out at someone's place, you know. We went to any restaurants. There's really good food at Houston, especially near NASA. So if you go in person, that'd be great. And also like the scientists there, you think that's probably just a bunch of old white men, but it's not. It's a really diverse environment. You get a bunch of young scientists who just basically just graduated or are doing like a postdoctorate. And they really give you good advice on like how to apply to grad school, what the benefits are. We also did movie nights, which were great because we just like ranted about how bad the movie was and like its scientific accuracy. And that was really fun. Plus we got free pizza. Going to NASA, like being able to touch pieces of the moon, I don't think it's something most of like your friends will ever be able to do. So just doing that, it's like completely worth it. So yeah, I'd say it goes way beyond just how much I'm gonna get paid or I don't really like Texas. It's like, you know, you have a bunch of experience, like world-class experience over there. And also like people who are probably will share your same interest academically, professionally, but also personally. So yeah, just the people are worth it. It's probably the most fun internship I've ever had.
Fantastic. Thank you guys. And we have some questions in the Q&A now. So this first one, Camelia asks, are there opportunities available or these opportunities available only to undergraduate students not to those who've recently graduated. And I think Claudia is going to answer that one for us.
Hi, Grace. I apologize. I had lost some connection there. Can you repeat again?
Oh, sorry. I think it marked that you were going to answer this one, but the question was, are these opportunities available only to undergraduate students and not to those who have recently graduated?
The LPI Summer Intern Program is geared to undergraduate students that are sophomore, junior, senior year level. If they are in their senior year during the time that they applied, and this is during the time that they have applied and they were selected and they graduated, they will be considered for the program. I hope I have answered the question, but we do also have other internship programs for graduate students, and that is the Exploration Science Summer Intern Program. And that is also a part of the LPI umbrella. So
Okay.
I strongly encourage graduate students to apply, and I'll add the link to the chat.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Grace.
We have another question. This one we can direct to our interns, anybody who wants to take this, but guys, how do you find holes in current understanding to get inspiration for starting to investigate a question about what you'd want to research?
I mean, sometimes you don't even need to find a hole in the understanding. Sometimes just you trying to learn stuff, like it gives you some questions that maybe nobody really asked before, just because everyone has a different perspective on stuff. I find that a really good way of like getting started on starting to ask questions as a researcher is simply to look at existing research and trying to replicate it. So at least in my case, most of the stuff I do is computational. So getting to replicate those results, it's not that hard. And sometimes while you're trying to do that, you find that your results don't really match what they got. And you try to, well, why don't they match? Like, is my model correct? Did I change something? What's the difference? So it's not really about you trying to, be this super genius, Einstein level person. It's just like asking questions about everything and simply like being skeptical when you read new stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there that seems kind of shady. Some of it is actually real, and you say like, well, now I know that. And some stuff is just like, yeah, that doesn't add up. And by sort of doing your own work, you find that out. Sometimes you're actually wrong. Most of the time, people are wrong. That's the beauty of science, But sometimes you're right, and you can, do a whole thesis on it, or talk to a professor about it and learn some more, and maybe even get started on a research project. So that's another way to approach a professor.
I would say, just from personal experience, filling holes in my knowledge, I find YouTube really, really helpful just for anything that you've had a question about. Like, I remember when I was young, I would just be questioning, oh, why do the aurora happen? Why do all these processes happen? And so I usually just Google or YouTube it and find a video. And then from there, you can find research papers or more scientific evidence to lead you to another question. And so I think if you just ask those questions that you've had since you were a kid, I think those are the ones that are the most probable in doing research. I think those are the ones that you should seek answers to, no matter how dumb the question is. I think it's always a valid question because you can never stop asking why. That's my big thing about, even if you know everything that you think you know about it, you probably don't, because if we've learned anything from science, for the last 500 years of Newton being right, and then we find out, oh yeah, Einstein's actually correct. It flipped everything on its head, and so I think you can't really be one-minded about it. You have to just keep asking why until you reach an answer.
Yeah, and I would also say, just keep up to date on science news, because the big news pieces that are coming out in the field of science you're interested in, those are active research projects that are addressing existing gaps. So if there's something there that interests you, you can see, where that research is coming from, maybe what lab or what university, and you can learn more about that existing gap that people are working to fill, and maybe how you can get involved. So we've got another question in the Q&A. Sherelle, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So this is to anyone that wanted to answer. How often do you get to work with other interns, and do any of your research projects overlap?
So I guess my project is kind of its own thing, but there is another intern who is using a similar software and kind of looking at a question that is related just on Venus, so not a chondrite parent body. So we have actually met together almost every day so far, with both of our advisors going through things together. And I don't know, Simon or Megan, if you've had different experiences.
Yeah, I haven't personally met with any of the other interns. My project is about Mars, and I don't know, there might be one other intern studying Mars, but I'm not sure. So, but we've interacted in other ways, like we had a movie night where he watched Zathura, and so that was pretty fun. So that's the only time that I've really actually interacted with a lot of the interns.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten to work with any of the other interns, but we do, like Simon said, we have had movie night, and then we also have our science seminar and our professional development seminar where we get to have really interesting conversations.
Yeah, back in my day, when stuff was in person, collaborating with other interns was really to the degree you wanted to collaborate with other interns, in the sense that most of the interns weren't, like, I don't think anyone was a computer science major. So for most of us, it was probably the first time working with MATLAB or some of this software. So yeah, we kind of taught each other what we knew. And also some of the interns, they had to write stuff, or maybe even the graduate interns, they had a lot of work. And sometimes I know some of the interns who were into geology sort of work with them and help them write their papers and stuff for like personal credit, like their name was written down on someone else's work, which is also super important. And then outside of the work we did at LPI, we also participated in some of the other activities LPI hosts. Like while I was there, they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Apollo landing, moon landing, and like some of the interns went to the Houston Natural Science Museum with Sharelle, Christine, and some of the people at LPI, and we worked basically all night long, giving demos and all that. And yeah, it's not only the work you do for your project. I guess that's important because that's what you're getting paid for, after all. But also all of the other stuff LPI does, you can work in and collaborate and know many more people.
I want to just talk about the culture, because I've heard, Simon, Elizabeth, Megan, and Gabriel talk about how they have come together, and like Elizabeth saying that she's not physically here in Houston at the LPI, but you just seems like it has been a great experience. And so to me, now going in this virtual space, to me that confirms that a virtual internship or being accepted into a virtual internship program can be just as rewarding as it is in person. And as Gabriel's mentioned, back in his day when they were all physically together, you can still create that same type of feel if done in an intentional way. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I mean, I do think you have to be more intentional about relationships when things are virtual. But yeah, I do still feel like I've been able to kind of start to build them. Yeah, our movie night was great. And I do really like getting to kind of work with another intern on a similar type of question. So, sorry.
It's okay. Our pet friends, our pet families, they are they're welcome as well. So bring your pets to our LPI Intern Stories. All are welcome. So I want to go back to one of the questions. Actually, Claudia, would you like to talk about the Q&A question, which talks about the interns being accepted into the program each year? I noted that she put it in the chat box, some things, but Claudia, do you want to clarify?
Thank you, Sherelle. Yes,
You're
I'd like to clarify on that. It depends every year. This past year, we selected 12 interns, and the selection, it varies. Some years we have 15, 16 interns. It all depends on how many projects are submitted, and if we're able to fulfill those projects. Advisors may submit something that is not along the line to the goal that the internship has for the student. So it does vary. So we normally select between 12 to 16 interns. And for an example, may I give an example, Sherelle? This year, we received 169 qualified applications. And I emphasize qualified because many applications that are submitted do not meet the qualification requirements. That means you're missing a transcript, you're missing a letter of recommendation. So out of those 169 qualified applications, the percentage of you being selected is 7.1%. So congratulations to the 12 that got selected this year. Yay! I hope I have answered the question.
Well, I thank you for that. Thank you for those numbers. I think that it just speaks volumes. It speaks volume to the I would say awesomeness, but to you all, because you all made it. But you know what? That also made me think about something else. Like, what stood you apart? Like, what set you apart? And so I want to talk about, like, what type of classes and hobbies and activities are you a part of, as a high school student or as an undergraduate student? Like, what are you doing besides the hard work of academia? Like, tell us what makes you well-rounded. What are some things that you're interested in outside of your studies?
Well, I also do music, so I'm a violinist, and I spend a lot of my extra time in orchestras. And then, like, in academia stuff, I'm really involved in my university's chemistry clubs, and I like putting on demos in my community. I think you can be interested in other things other than science. And like, I like to do art and photography. You can be interested in sports or whatever. You don't have to just do science. Explore all of your interests.
Yeah, I also do like photography. I do a lot of just driving around, getting lost because I'm really bad at it, even with the GPS, honestly. I used to have a drone, just like find a good spot, fly it around, walk my dog, take pictures of my dog, brag about my dog, bore people about my dog. And I mean, I also did a lot of tutoring and a lot of educational outreach. So it's something I'm passionate about. And definitely school is not a time to leave stuff behind just because you have too much work. Sometimes that extra work is what makes it actually worthwhile, because now you have experience, you know, now you're not just like someone with a high school diploma, you're someone like who's currently and will get a college degree and will maybe even get a PhD and be a college professor. So all of that experience and helping others is always like something that makes you feel good, at least if you're like not a horrible person. So yeah, it's definitely not a time to leave your hobbies behind. I say it's a time to actually find new hobbies and sort of get like, when you're done with a test, there's nothing better than just like forget about school, go out with a couple of friends, eat really bad food, you know, Taco Bell or something like that, and just like talk about life, talk about your hobbies, watch a terrible movie, and just laugh it out.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that research is a very collaborative, very human effort, and it's more fun to work with you know, well-rounded people, and that can come across in an application. I wanted to ask this question specifically of Simon. Your background in, you know, middle and high school, did you think you would end up in an internship like this?
So honestly, I would have never imagined myself being in an internship like this, because in middle school, I used to be like terrible at math. I get C's on all my algebra exams. And then especially in high school, I thought I was like, oh, I'm never going to do math. It's awful. Like I would fail my exams. I thought it was something that I could never pursue. And then once I got to college, something kind of switched in my brain where I had always been interested in science, but the math was something that kind of came later. And so once it started clicking in my head, my calculus classes were actually one of my favorite classes out of my entire career, which is something that I never thought I would have happened, like that would happen to me. And I think what changed is that I stopped kind of having a defeatist attitude. And especially with things like math, you have to work at it one piece at a time. And it takes a long time for you to be good at something. And so that's why I think a lot of people don't realize is that they see all these successful people, like all these scientists, and they think, oh, it took them 1 year to get where they are. No, it took them 20 plus years to get where they are. So it takes a concerted effort over many years to do something remarkable, which is what I think that, especially looking back at myself, I had never thought I could do something like this. I thought I just watch Science Channel on TV and that's basically it. And I'll just read about it in the news. But now that I'm actually a part of it, it's something that I never thought I could even do. And I think as someone that struggled with confidence my whole life, having that little spark of confidence is something that really pushes you through.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'll give a moment. Do our other interns want to add anything about maybe challenges or surprises that they have come across with getting to this point and beyond?
I'd like to say I have a very similar experience. Math was always the most difficult subject for me, and I definitely thought at many points that meant that I wouldn't be able to become a scientist. And it didn't click until college, and I think it's because I just kept trying and I just kept signing up for the classes even though I felt I wasn't good, and it eventually did click. And I have to say that even though math is like the language of science, basic other skills are important too. You have to read a lot, you have to read literature, and you have to be able to communicate through writing as well. So writing skills, I think, are just as important as math skills. And I think if you really work hard and if you really want to do something, I think you can.
Yeah, for me, it never clicked. But I did find out in college that programming is a really good substitute for knowing math. And sometimes you can just code your formulas and use that. So yeah, at least in engineering, math is not really what you'll do most of the time. It's just a tool, a really important one, at least. But yeah, it's just a tool and you can get away with other stuff as long as you are creative And, maybe you're a musician, that's still important because you can bring that point of view into engineering, and it has solved many problems before. And, my motto is always like, if someone else can do it, how hard can it be? So if someone with like 40 plus years in solving differential equations can do it, how hard can it be?
That's a great attitude to have. No, that's important to remember also that, you're joining a part of a team. And if your forte is not in math, that's probably okay. Someone else could pick up that slack for you. So you should emphasize the things that you can bring to the team. All right, so we have a couple minutes left. We have some fun questions that maybe we wanted to wrap up with. Sherelle, do you want to take those?
Absolutely. I always want fun questions. So let's see. I'm going to start out with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, do you have any pets? We did hear your dog, but we wanted you to talk about your fur baby. Like, do you have any pets? Do you have any other pets other than your dog? And what's your favorite animal?
Okay, so I have 2 dogs. You heard one of them, the other one is better behaved, so him. But I guess I only have dogs right now, but I had geckos for a long time and I loved them. I had leopard geckos, which are great if you're in apartment style living or a dorm. You can usually get away with them. Yeah, my favorite animal, chameleons. Yeah, I got really into lizards when I was little because I went with the nickname Liz for a while. So.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. Let's see, what are you most excited for in the field of planetary science? And this goes to Simon.
So I think that's something that's really exciting, especially now, are things like Venus, and then also the icy moons in the outer solar system. I think especially astrobiology, which is such a new field, it's probably only like 30 years old. It's a really hot topic because those are, well, maybe not Venus now, but especially like Europa and Titan and the moons of Saturn and Jupiter, those could potentially be places where life has existed or even exists now. And so I think right now that's like a really big topic, especially since we have the capabilities of sending probes there, which they're sending one soon, actually, the Europa Clipper. So I think those are the most exciting things that I personally would like to do for my career.
Well, also, and I wish you much success in that future endeavor and that you can come back and tell us all about it. And to Megan, if you could observe any astronomical event or object, what would you choose and why?
Well, if I could see absolutely anything, it would be a supernova. Obviously, we don't really want one to happen too close to us because we would all die, but they're the most explosive events in the universe. I think they're really beautiful and they're really cool because they make lots of the heavier elements. So that's what if I could see anything, it would be a supernova.
And I feel like with Gabe, with you being the old person on the panel, no, I'm just kidding. We want to hear about, like, what are you doing now? Like, what are you up to now, Gabe? What fun stuff, what cool stuff, what are you up to now?
I don't know, I'm taking suggestions. So as if 5.5 years of school weren't enough, I'm doing like 5, probably 7 more. But yeah, generally, I just like walk around, take pictures. Right now, I'm doing another internship in Maryland. So being able to go to DC, like New York, Pennsylvania, and all that, it's always fun. I like to travel. It's kind of hard when you're on a student budget. But yeah, mostly that. And again, talk about my dog, more people about my dog, show my dog. And you can reach me, shoot out an email, and I'll send you all the pictures I have of her. I call her my daughter. Yeah, daughter with an O. But yeah, not much. I always take suggestions.
Thank you all for sharing. So we have a last few minutes. So anyone else wants to talk about or say anything, last comment about your experience. What do you have planned in the future, or any lasting advice or a lasting word that you would give any of our attendees right now?
Yeah, the best way to summarize LPI, it's just a family where Claudia's the mom, Delia's the dad, your supervisor is probably like your older sibling, and then you have a bunch of crazy uncles and aunts just like running around. Like Christine, she takes you to the museum and like gets you to, you know, do stuff in front of children, like show them how the moon works and all that. And yeah, you have free coffee, so yeah. You have like the kitchen and everything. And when you get there, I'd say most of your advisors will probably tell you to address them by their first name, because it's not really like an academic setting in the sense of everything is super proper. And in that sense, everything gets to move quicker, I'd say, because people just get along and there's not much conflict. So yeah.
Well, I thank you. Oh, go ahead, Simon. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna add, I definitely think that when you get accepted into something like this, it's easy to fall into imposter syndrome, where you don't feel like you deserve it, or you're not worth that, you're not good enough. And that's what when I've done things like this, I feel in the beginning, but then I start to realize that these people, the reason why you were chosen is because they saw something in you. And that's what you need to keep in your mind, is that you are worth it, and that if you try hard enough, you can do it. And it's not a matter of, oh, well, I'm never smart enough than this person, I'm not smart enough to do that. No, it's all about a path to that level where you can reach that level. It's just about how much you put into it. I just want to leave everyone with that people who are thinking that they can't do it, like me when I was in high school thinking, oh, I'm just gonna be another just random person that watches Science Channel. So I just want to tell you that you can do these things if you try and you believe in yourself.
Well, you know what, Simon, I think that that last word was definitely on point. Thank you all. Thank you all again for joining us, being on the stage. Miss Claudia, thank you so much for your information as well. Before you all run, we have 2 more questions that we would like to ask you. So go ahead and answer our final 2 poll questions. Here's the first one. After attending today's program, do you feel more confident about pursuing a research internship? All right, and then we have question number 2. After attending today's program, do you feel more aware of how to get involved in a research internship? Well, all right. Thank you everyone again for spending the evening with us or today with us. We would like to invite you to our next series of 3. It's going to be July 13th, same bad time, which is 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we usually last about an hour. We will have a different set of panelists with different sets of questions. So if you come back, please join us and be prepared to ask your questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening, and you have a wonderful rest of the day.